I call the meeting to order. Welcome to meeting number 84.
Bienvenue.
La réunion d'aujourd'hui se déroule sous forme hybride, conformément au règlement.
Today we are having a hybrid meeting according to the standing orders. And I must say that even though we have a very high performance audio system, it is possible that feedback may occur. This can be extremely harmful to the interpreters and cause them serious injury. I would invite you to not put your earpieces too close to the microphones in order to avoid interference. I also remind you that all comments must be made to the chair. I have a reminder to the members of the committee to not forget to send the list of your recommendations for the draft report on the veterans' experiences to the committee clerk by, at the latest, Wednesday, March 6th.
I have a request from Ms. Blaney, who would like to say something. Ms. Blaney, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much, Chair. I just wanted to read onto the record the notice of motion. I will not be moving it, of course, today out of respect for the witnesses that we have here, but want to make sure it's on the record. That in relation to its study on the National Monument to Canada's mission in Afghanistan, the Committee A invite the Deputy Commander of Military Personnel, Lieutenant General Liz Bourgon, and pursuant to Standing Order 108, brackets 1, brackets A, order the production of all memoranda, briefing notes, emails, correspondence, or any other records of conversations or communications, including text messages, Microsoft Teams messages, WhatsApps, apps, messages, signal messages, or other electronic messaging with regard to the National Monument to Canada's mission in Afghanistan, transmitted since November the 8th, 2021, between I, the Department of Veterans Affairs and the Office of the Minister of Veterans Affairs, double I, or 2, the Department of Veterans Affairs and the Privy Council Office, 3, the Department of Veterans Affairs and the members of the jury responsible for evaluating the finalist designs for the National Monument to Canada's mission in Afghanistan, 4, the Department of Canadian Heritage and the Office of the Minister of Canadian Heritage, V, or 5, the Department of Canadian Heritage and the Privy Council Office, 6, the Privy Council Office and the Office of the Prime Minister, 7, the Office of the Minister of Veterans Affairs and the Office of the Prime Minister, and 8, the Office of the Minister of Canadian Heritage and the Office of the Prime Minister, provided that these documents shall be provided to the Clerk of the Committee in both official languages and without redaction within 21 days of the adoption of this motion. And C, and that the Department of Veterans Affairs Canada and the Department of Canadian Heritage provide the official report of the jury established for the selection of the firm responsible for the design of the National Monument to Canada's mission in Afghanistan. Thank you so much, Chair. And I would just like to say, absolutely.
So, Mr. Richards.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, on a point of order, and I do have an argument to make from Bosch and Gagnon, but I would ask that you indulge me for a couple of moments to just provide a little context before citing that. Back in November, and 6 times since, I've brought forward a motion that we put on notice, and I'll read the motion because I think it's important that the committee hear this for deliberation on the point of order. That in relation to its study on the National Monument to Canada's mission in Afghanistan, the Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs.
Point of order, Chair.
We're on a point of order.
There's not a point of order.
So I'd like to listen a little bit carefully, and I will go back to you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Chair, the chair has given me the latitude to be able to explain my point of order before making it. That in relation to its study on the National Monument to Canada's mission in Afghanistan, the Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs, A, call the Deputy Commander of Military Personnel, Lieutenant General Liz Bourgon, and B, order the production of all memoranda, briefing notes, emails, correspondence, or any other records of conversations or communications, including text messages, Microsoft Teams messages, WhatsApp messages, Signal messages, or other electronic messaging with regard to the National Monument to Canada's mission in Afghanistan transmitted since November 8, 2021 between 1, the Department of Veterans Affairs and the Office of the Minister of Veterans Affairs, 2, the Department of Canadian Heritage and the Office of the Minister of Canadian Heritage, 3, the Department of Veterans Affairs and the Privy Council Office, 4, the Department of Canadian Heritage and the Privy Council Office, 5, the Privy Council Office and the Office of the Prime Minister, 6, the Office of the Minister of Veterans Affairs and the Office of the Prime Minister, and 7, the Office of the Minister of Canadian Heritage and the Office of the Prime Minister, provided that these documents shall be provided to the clerk of the committee in both official languages and without redaction within 21 days of the adoption of this motion. Now, if this sounds familiar, you'll note that it's all contained within the motion that we have just heard, which I will point out has been brought forward several times and could have been voted on 2 months ago had the NDP member just not adjourned the meeting and actually voted for the motion. Now, since then, on February 12th, the Bloc moved an amendment that the motion be amended by adding the following after paragraph C, and that the Department of Veterans Affairs Canada and the Department of Canadian Heritage provide the official report.
This is debate,
of the
Mr.
jury
Chair.
Debate. Not a point of order.
It is a point of order.
Under what
me
standing
finish.
order?
No.
Under
Let
what
me
standing
finish.
order?
Let me finish, I will. And that the Department of Veterans Affairs Canada and the Department of Canadian Heritage provide the official report of the jury established for the selection of the firm responsible for the design of the
Point of
National
order,
Monument to the
Chair.
Canada's mission in Afghanistan. And the point I'm making here, Chair,
Yes,
is
go
if
to
you
the
were-
print.
if you were to look
to
at
your-
these two motions,
Right.
this motion is entirely those two motions with one exception.
Right.
The
debate.
exception, the
Where's the
exception
point of
is,
order?
the exception is the following. The portion that was previously an amendment made by the Liberal Party, that the motion be amended by adding after paragraph B the following, that the Veterans Affairs Canada produce any correspondence received from members of the jury responsible for evaluating the
Yeah,
finalist
but
designs.
Mr.
Now, Chair,
Richards,
Chair,
Point of
let me-
order.
No,
let me
no, no,
finish, Chair.
let me say
Because the
something.
point-
Right,
the
let me
point- the
say
point,
something,
Mr.
please.
It's not debate, Chair. Let
No,
me finish,
yeah,
because I'm
but
about to
no,
get
no,
to the point.
yeah,
The motion,
but
the motion.
Mr.
no, there was-
Richards,
Context was important.
Just a second. Let me tell you something. We can have a lot of motions on the same subject. So I understand
Chair,
that
I
you are
haven't-
saying
I
that
haven't
you
quoted
have
to
a
you yet the
motion, Mr.
Boston
Desilets
Gagnon.
have one,
Chair,
and now we have a
Chair,
new one. Yes.
You need to allow me to finish because there is a point of order here and you haven't allowed me to make the point.
But
The point
please
is
Clearly the
go
train
that
to
did not
your
there is one,
specific
there is one
point.
portion of this motion that is substantially different than those two things I've just read, the Bloc Amendment and the Conservative motion. And that is the
That's
Liberal,
debate.
that is
That's
the
not a point of
Liberal
order.
amendment, which
Chair,
was
he's
previous-
talking
which was
over you.
previously
Where's the
defeated.
decorum?
And therefore, based on Boston Gagnon in chapter 20, I would rule that that portion of the motion should be
Okay.
should be inadmissible.
Yeah,
Based on
I
this,
understand
based
your
on this,
point.
based on this principle.
I
Chair.
understand your point,
Any
Mr.
motion that
Richards.
has- let me read the
Yeah,
Boston
but we have
Gagnon, Chair.
witnesses. We have
Yes,
witnesses
but I have a
today.
point of order,
I
Chair.
know, but I
Let me make
understand.
the point of
I
order.
understand the basic
You
of your
can't
point
rule
of
until
order.
you've heard it, Chair.
Yeah, but okay. So
Let
that's
me-
why
let
I
me-
said
let me-
I
let me
give you
read
one
the
more
Boston
minute.
Gagnon, yeah.
Yes,
I
I
need-
give you
I
one
need
more minute to
20 seconds,
conclude.
Chair.
Yeah,
20
20
seconds.
seconds to conclude, please,
So
Mr.
in
Richards.
Boston Gagnon, in chapter 20, it indicates that a motion that is the same in substance as one that is already decided in the same session is inadmissible. And there is a portion of this that was an amendment moved, and that should extend to an amendment, as previous chairs have in fact ruled. And that is the portion that says, the point 3, B point 3, that is exactly the same in content as a amendment that was previously defeated by this committee, and therefore I would rule that point B, subpoint 3, should be inadmissible.
Okay, thank you so much. And I have also Ms. Blaney. So please, if you could be quick, because
Absolutely, I
and I
can
will
be.
come back with my decision regarding that intervention.
Thank you so much, Chair. And again, I just want to note to everybody that this was just a notice to motion. Mr. Richards has complained a lot about not being able to get this done. And what I thought I would do is bring together all the motions and hopefully having representation from every party get to move it forward. So I'll leave it at that, Chair, and I hope we can get to the witnesses. Thank you again for allowing me this time.
Thank you very much. So now, please, we have 2 witnesses with us, and we will have 3 more after in 1 hour. So let me introduce the witnesses.
Point of order. I've made the point of order.
Yeah, but-
I'd like a ruling on the point
Yes,
of order.
but I
It's-
just told you that I will come back with my decision on that.
When would you come back?
As soon as possible.
Because,
As-
Chair,
Yeah.
Chair, it's important that we have a ruling on this point of order because I would like to see these motions get dealt with.
Yeah.
Please, Chair, I would ask for a ruling.
Yes, I said that you're going to have a ruling, but
When?
Ms. Blaney table a motion, just table that motion. We are not discussing this motion, so I have plenty of time to come back to the committee and to give my decision.
Well,
So
Chair, I
you're
would-
not going to have my
I would-
decision
I would
today.
ask that you provide us a decision.
I will provide, but not
Today?
today. No. I have, please, members of the committee, we have witnesses that we have, excuse me, guys, member, come on, please. Okay, listen. Mr. Richard, this is the last time. We have two witnesses in front of us. They make arrangement to be here with us. So please be responsible and let them, because they have a lot to say. And I will now introduce our two witnesses for today. À titre individuel, j'ai dit two, but three witnesses.
In fact, we have three witnesses with us today. We have Ms. Vicky Lynn Cox from Aircraft Structural Technicians, and by video conference, we have a gentleman, Mr. Steve Turpin, and from True Patriot Love Foundation, Nick Booth, who is the Chief Executive Officer.
And after that, members of the committee will ask you questions. So, Mrs. Cox, I'd like to start with you. You have 5 minutes for your opening statement.
Mr. Chair, before I begin, I'd like to address the fact that Mr. Richards has done this a few times, take the witnesses' time and the court's time to debate his own personal agendas. Apart from that, hello everyone, thank you for having me. Members of the committee, I appreciate the opportunity to present my recommendations regarding this parliamentary study on transition. As a veteran Air Force Sergeant of the Canadian Armed Forces, a military spouse, and a mother of three, I aim to draw from my personal experience to assist others in navigating the challenges of transition. In 1996, I enlisted as an aircraft structural technician in the Canadian Armed Forces. Shortly after commencing my recruit course in 1997, I endured a traumatic incident of sexual assault perpetrated by another recruit. Despite this and other similar adversities, I persevered, driven by my deep love for my job and my commitment to want to serve my country. Throughout my years of service, I faced harassment, sexual assault, discrimination, despite sustaining injuries from a runway aircraft incident in 2003 and being subsequently diagnosed with PTSD and fibromyalgia. I remained dedicated to my duties. It was not until the announcement of Operation Honor in 2015 that I finally felt empowered to come forward and report the incidents that I had endured. After reporting 4 cases instead of receiving individual support for my recovery, I was abruptly pushed towards the transition out of the military, all while my perpetrators remained unpunished. Overall, transition unit provided inadequate support, leaving me ill-prepared for civilian life and exacerbating the toll on my physical and mental health and that of my family. Despite my efforts to raise awareness about the lack of support for victims of sexual misconduct, I encounter resistance from the senior military officials, including General Jonathan Vance. His signature on my certificate symbolizes the institutional failure to address the systematic issues within the military. It made me sick to look at. because he had already been fired and charged. Following my release in 2020, I experienced a profound decline in both my physical and mental well-being, compounded by the financial burden of excessive private health care services, the absence of dedicated support services for veterans and their families further exacerbated our struggles. In light of these challenges, I propose the following recommendations to enhance the reintegration of military personnel into civilian life. Establishment of dedicated sexual misconduct services and support at the transition center, accessible to both members and their families. Provide a comprehensive legal and mental health support, particularly for individuals navigating ongoing legal cases and mental health challenges. Allocation of funds for education and skills training program tailored to diverse needs of veterans, including non-traditional avenues such as acting and improv training. Expansion and alignment of support services offered by Veterans Affairs with those provided by comparable international agencies such as the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Implementation of long-term support programs addressing various aspects of post-military life with medical oversight to ensure safety and effectiveness. Enhancement of access to essential resources during transition, including D1, computers, civilian lawyers, finance specialists, and female veteran-specific job preparation resources. Establishment of mentorship programs to guide transitioning members and their families through the challenges of civilian life. These recommendations aim to address the systematic gaps in support services for military personnel and their families, ensuring a smoother transition to civilian life, mitigating the adverse effects of military service by prioritizing the well-being of veterans and acknowledging their contributions. We can honor their service and uphold their values of equity, dignity, and respect within our armed forces. I would like to underline the importance of programs geared to support our children and spouses through this transition. Couples Overcoming PTSD Every Day, COPE program was extremely beneficial for my husband and I, as well as our children. The POST programs follows through with 6 months of couples coaching, laid down the foundation for my husband and I needed to start recovering. Camp Maple Leaf for the Kids of Heroes is also another great program. Extremely beneficial for my family. Personally, I've participated in a program offered at Project Trauma Support run by Manuela Joannou, and the Life Shop at the Pepper Pod by Sandra Perron, both of which are potentially dangerous and would not recommend. Apart from that, I'd like to underline that I have been working with one of the previous witnesses, Marie-Ève Doucet, in which I remember us taking down engines and working together on the flight line. So I really want to emphasize that there needs to be a study on hazardous material and the effects of our unborn children, and especially the microparticles and how it affects our brains. Currently, I have a list of friends that are already dead. I have some that are dying, and I have some that will die, specifically because of this, and the other countries have already recognized the hazmat risk. And I'm just waiting for my number. And it just pains me to think that I will, after being sick this long, potentially not make it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Cox, and thank you for sharing your story with us. And we'll ask you some questions. And now, by video conference, I'd like to invite Mr. Steve Turpin for 5 minutes, please. Yeah, your mic, maybe is not on, Mr. Turpin. No sound yet. Okay, Mr. Turpin, I will come back to you, and I will go to Mr. Boot, and you will go third. So, Mr. Boot, you have 5 minutes, please, for your opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to contribute to your mandate through this study on transition to civilian life. As Canada's National Foundation for the Military Community, much of True Patriot Love's work contributes in a range of ways to support military and veteran transition. I'm going to focus my brief remarks today on 4 of these: employment, recovery from injury, the maintenance of purpose, and the provision of information. Firstly, employment. True Patriot Love welcomed the committee's recent report on the National Strategy for Veteran Employment. Specifically, we were pleased to see Recommendation 18 that the Government of Canada should implement the outcomes from the 2017 True Patriot Love Veterans Transition Advisory Council report. We're proud of our strategic collaboration with the Canadian Armed Forces Transition Group, Veterans Affairs Canada, Military Family Services, and our relationship with the Chief of Reserves and employer support. It is important that this ecosystem of agencies finds ways to work together collaboratively. We've been piloting this through our ongoing partnership with the Government of Ontario. This includes our recent event, Ecosystem Connect, when agencies came together with private sector employers to look at how to improve best practice and promote veteran hiring across large organizations, small and medium-sized enterprises, and also with a specific focus on recruiting veteran talent into the health sector. We would also flag the importance of considering the needs of veteran families, as we heard so powerfully this morning, as an, as an essential in every discussion about transition to civilian life. We all know that when someone signs up to serve, their families sign up too. And this does not stop when the serving member takes their uniform off, and the ongoing health and transition impacts can affect the whole family. Secondly, recovery from injury. Well, most of those who leave our armed forces do so healthy and well. They're not just in need of some assistance finding their direction post-service. There are, of course, a subset who release for medical reasons and for whom issues linger into the future. For those who may be injured or become ill, opportunities for rehabilitation as part of a successful transition are vital. And the Foundation contributes to this through funding programs using adaptive sport, expeditions, and the creative arts, amongst others. Just recently, along with some others in the room, I had the pleasure to attend the One Year to Go events for the 2025 Winter Invictus Games in Vancouver and Whistler, which True Patriot Love is leading. It was inspiring to see the impact of participation and international camaraderie shared amongst veterans from nearly 20 nations. The transition from military to civilian life plays an important role in the vision of Invictus by inspiring recovery from injury, celebrating the role of families, and building a connection with community. I would like to thank the Government of Canada and the Province of British Columbia for their significant support of these unique games. Thirdly, maintaining purpose. We often hear that on leaving the armed forces, veterans can feel disconnected from their civil community and separated from a previously well-defined sense of purpose. With support from Veterans Affairs, the Foundation is working with 7 program partners to do the first Canadian study to research this relationship between service and well-being. This links directly to Recommendation 30 of the National Strategy for Veteran Employment. Once this research is complete, we intend to develop a national action plan that will offer tools and communication strategies to find, recruit, screen, and harness veteran volunteers. And finally, how we gather and provide information to the veteran community. From our vantage as a national funder, we know that many organizations across the sector are attempting to tackle the challenge of military to civilian transition, and there is a growing interest in the field. This creates a landscape with the potential for duplication and overlap. The knowledge we have gained by listening to the community has led to the creation of our new Veteran Hub. This is a national online platform launched in the fall of last year, and which helps connect veterans, serving members and their families with programs, volunteer opportunities and local events. Users can visit our interactive map and see easily what is available to them in their home communities. We are thrilled that almost 400 organisations have joined the site, fostering a supportive ecosystem for veterans and their families. We hope members of the committee might promote it within their own networks. Related, there are a number of organisations which are providing support for homeless veterans through different models. However, there's an absence of concise data on the scale of veteran homeless population or lack of measurable outcomes from the limited funding available. We strongly support a data-driven approach based on local needs and solutions drawn together into a national framework. We were pleased also to see the committee's recent recommendation recognising the importance of providing veterans with control over their medical records and allowing them to be shared with family doctors, service providers and Veterans Affairs. We remain in discussion of this through our mental health technology initiative and believe it will be a significant contributor to ease transition to civilian life. In closing, Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity to be here today, and I look forward to any questions or discussion with the committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Root from True Patriot Love Foundation. And now we go to Mr. Steve Turpin as an individual on the video conference. Please go ahead. 5 minutes. Yeah.
Cette fois, vous pouvez m'entendre tous.
Just 1 minute, Mr. Turpin.
No.
The sound is not good at all, and for our interpreters, could be really bad for them. So let's check with our... Okay, yes, please go ahead, Mr. Turpin. Mr. Turpin? It's freeze. Yeah. Yeah. On doit... Est-ce qu'il va pouvoir y aller? Okay. Sorry, we're going to suspend for 30 seconds and to give the time to our technician to connect Mr. Turpin. So remain seated, please, and 30 seconds, we will come back. Meeting suspended.
We are going to resume, given the technical difficulties that we are having with the connection of Mr. Turpin. He will come back for the second hour. So we are going to continue with the witnesses that are here right now. We are going to say that, okay, what I will do, given the time, we're going to do one round of questions. It'll be 6 minutes per group with each of the witnesses that are here. And then we will take a break so we can welcome the new, so we'll have the new turn. Do you have an intervention, Mr. Desilets? Were the sound testing done before that? Yes, the sound testing was done because we forgot to mention it at the beginning of the meeting. Thank you. So I also want to welcome Mr. Mike Calloway, who is replacing Sean Casey. Thanks for being here.
With the first, the only round of questions of 6 minutes each, and and you can split your time. And I'm start with Mr. Tolmie. Fraser Tolmie, you have 6 minutes for question. Please.
Thank you, Chair, and I want to thank our witnesses for being here. I want to thank Vicky for her service. It is noted that we were stationed together in Bagotville, Quebec for, I think, 3 years, and it's someone that I care about, and that I'm glad to see you here, and so I want to thank you for your testimony, and thank you, Mr. Booth, for being here. I'm going to start off with Mr. Booth. Something that just popped up when you were giving your presentation, that a recommendation from 2017 is finally being implemented. We've heard this before where we've done numerous studies, recommendations, and then it's taken years to implement. Could you elaborate a little bit on that for me?
Yes. The 2017 study was run by True Patriot Love, so it was an independent study, and made some recommendations around how the transition of serving members, and particularly connections to private sector employment, can be improved. I would say a number of those things have improved over the years, and certainly I think the Canadian Armed Forces Transition Group, in my experience in 5 years of being here in Canada, has done a very good job. But I'm pleased to see that the subject hasn't gone away, and that this committee and others across government are continuing to focus on it.
Yeah, I think you would understand from our perspective here that we are working diligently to help veterans, and the length of time for a recommendation to come through is very frustrating, because we keep hearing the same complaints, the same issues, and this government hasn't acted on it. And so it's very, very frustrating for us to, we feel like we're wasting our time when we're actually supposed to be advocating for veterans to get them better service. So I thank you for your honesty. Vicky, I'd like to ask you a question. I'd like some clarification on your comments on Pepper Pod. We've had Pepper Pod here before, and I just wasn't sure if I completely got your comments accurately. Could you elaborate on what your comments were?
There's a long list of stuff that I could elaborate on the Pepper Pod. As a disabled person, I wasn't allowed to bring my service dog. I was stayed up till 2 a.m. and there was no hand railing for me to go downstairs. I had to walk on my bum to get to the basement. I was asked to cook my own supper at night and clean up afterwards after being sitting down for hours and hours. I stopped one of the meetings because the lady next to me had had just a hysterectomy 2 weeks prior. And they wanted to continue with the program. I don't think that the goal was to create a women's center, especially if I go on the internet and I see a whole bunch of Legion guys there and a whole bunch of, I don't feel safe there anymore. It's like if you would bring some Taliban in a boys' club in Valcartier and say, you know, there's some stuff that is not considered safe. There's a program that it is like a 24-hour workshop concerning sexual misconduct. Well, I wouldn't do that workshop at all because that is such a complex PTSD trauma to even dare open and then not have any, you know, you leave the cohort and what? You're still in it. You're still, memories are coming up. So it's extremely dangerous for the health of the veteran, depending where they are as well on their journey.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for elaborating on that because I know that you're limited to 5 minutes, and so you're not able to always expand on that. One of the things that I'm concerned about, and knowing you personally, is PTSD and then the compounded impacts of your service. So the incident in 2003, I believe it was a jet blast, was that correct? And then, you know, the job in which you were doing, the microparticles, the paint. So these are like compounding things. Now, when you go to Veterans Affairs, is that recognized, or do they try and separate them out as different events?
No, they don't. They don't consider. They think metal tech, metal. They don't consider the whole scope of our work. If you can pull back from the testimony from Marie-Ève Doucet, I have worked with her on the flight line. I have changed engines with her. I have felt the jet fuel fall down and go in my lymph nodes, and for the hydraulic to seep through my brain and to seep through my skin, which is, our skin is the biggest organ. How can I even use gloves when the ketone melts the glove? All those things, and those microparticles are from the aircraft being there, from the GP8. If I'm doing a repair on a jet, I don't necessarily have the whole thing, so I have to sand. Once you sand down polyurethane paint, it releases a very toxic microparticle of isocyanides. And then isocyanides, they seep in everywhere, in the skins of the pores, in everywhere. So I'm even worried about the janitor. The janitor should be covered. We have canteens in those buildings. Our food is made in those buildings. And buildings that were created in 1950s, not to save the technicians, but just for the war. They were meant for temporary.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Cox, and thank you, Mr. Tolmy. And now let's go to Mrs. Ethner for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair, and I want to especially thank our witnesses for being here today and for sharing, especially Vicki Cox. Thank you for your service and for sharing. I know it's traumatic to keep sharing the stories, but it's really important that we hear from you and that you put your story on the record so we can learn from it and move forward. And I'm sorry that you had to start today listening to a bunch of political wrangling. You deserve to have respect when you're here, and you deserve to be listened to. So I want to go back to the story you were just telling in the last segment, and just to make sure I understand it correctly. You worked with airplanes, CF-18s, I think, and you came into contact with a lot of hazardous materials with your work. And you've found since that all of the conditions that could be attributed to the substances you work with could be affecting your health, and you're having difficulty getting recognition for that. Would you explain in a little bit of detail more what that means and where you think the support should come from? How should we change the system to support people like you?
Well, I was in charge of WMIS on most of the bases, so I had access, easy access to all those, to the SIMDA sheets that explain the health hazards, which most of them include cancer, some sort of cancer. And when I released from the military, I asked PMed for a list of toxic products that I had been exposed to in my service. They were unable to provide me that. I asked the doctor, can you provide me a list of toxic products that are associated with my trade? He couldn't. I asked Veterans Affairs, can I have a list of toxic products that are associated with my trade? Nothing. So I'm just here waiting to get cancer to try to prove it afterwards, while all the other countries have figured that out already and we're 10 years behind. I fear that I won't be there long enough for my children. I'm losing friends by the minute, Maria being a very close one and Steve being a very close one as well.
And you're saying you're having trouble
My
even getting
diagnosis,
right?
Pardon me?
You're having trouble even getting diagnosis.
Yes, I asked my medical doctor, Dr. Zhang, who is a retired admiral, I think, to get a scanning for precancerous cells, and I got refused. I've asked Veterans Affairs to send me somewhere that I can at least prevent, because I know that they have scans now in Toronto that you can prevent cancer. And I was denied, so everything is out of pocket. My suggestion is that you take the past 30 years of people that worked on F-18s and at least scan some of them. Get a percentage, a study of, over the past 30 years, these technicians, out of these technicians got pancreatic cancer, brain cancer, to divide that up. And speaking of the F-18, we have the F-35 coming. And my first thought is, where's the list of toxic products? And are we ready to receive those jets and protect?
In our last meeting, we were speaking about women's health in particular, and among veterans, there's fewer women, and there might be fewer supports for things that particularly affect women, and we know that there's less research in the medical field on conditions that affect women. For example, menopause. We hear that a lot of service women start going through those life changes and don't really have the supports to be able to deal with them. Do you have any recommendations for, in particular, because I think the toxic substances would affect anybody. Maybe they affect women differently from men. Do you have anything particular to add?
Recommendation is that the female members are required to have a broad idea of when they would like to start a family, and then they are 3 months before they even start, they're removed off the floor. I was at a fertility clinic with my husband, and I had to fight tooth and nail not to install PRC, which is the most damaging thing to the cell of the embryo as it's developing. By the time the stick turns blue, it's already done. I had to go to medical and fight with the doctor to get 6 months out of the floor, because I was working they were going to make me paint. And I had to ask and look like, you know, the squeaky wheel so I could potentially protect, you know, do what's best for the baby. And I wasn't joking, I was in fertility. I have 3 children, one of which I had before I got really exposed, and 2 of which I had exposure. This one has nothing. This one has asthma and dyslexia, and the other one with anxiety, and the other one has ADD with anxiety and anger. I do not believe that I had different genetics apart from what could have, what changed in my environment. And what changed in my environment was the work environment. They put me in an office, but I'm still in the building. I can't be on the flight line. I need to be away from explosions, possible explosions in the paint shops, away from the exhaust fuel that's carcinogenic, that is blowing all the PMQs. Everything is going towards the children, towards the wives. So it's a bigger, much bigger thing. I think Marie-Ève Doucet's case should be really brought into this study and really honed in on that. And presumptive claims for hazmat trays, especially for women.
Thank you, Mrs. Cox. Thank you, Mrs. Effner. Et maintenant, nous allons passer la parole à Monsieur Luc Desilets pour les 6 prochaines minutes, s'il vous plaît. Allez-y.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Now to Luc Desilets for the next 6 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to our colleagues, and thank you to our guests. Ms. Cox, I'm really greatly affected. We can't not be affected by what you have just told us. I'd like to come back to an area that isn't easy, the sexual harassment. Did you feel heard, respected when you went through the various processes? I felt overwhelmed. In what way? Well, in the sense that finally this came out, and I'm finally in a place where I can talk about it with a fairly respectable rank, so sufficiently respectable that I can talk about it. But they didn't do anything, and they didn't take it into account. And when I started the process, they gave me a man as a mentor, so I didn't feel. So what happened with the aggressor? What happened with the aggressor? Well, I mentioned 4 cases which stopped me from sleeping and made me have panic attacks. One person was already in prison in Quebec. In one case, Bagotville wanted to defend it. What they did is and that was after I had to fight for them to listen, to hear my case. And they reduced the charge and said you won't have access to furthering your career. But they still reassigned him. How many times did you have to tell this story of sexual harassment? Well, I don't know how many times. The military police, the doctors, you have to explain to the case manager, you have to explain it to your therapist, you have to explain it to your partner. I really lost a lot of feathers in explaining this. Okay, another aspect. Yes, Marie-Ève Doucet was here testifying, and she really linked exposure to toxic substances during her service. And it seems that you are doing the same thing in terms of your children. And according to you, are there studies that have been done, or have you done research? Well, I started to do research, but really we need a study.
We need a study on the impact, especially with the arrival of F-35s. And in the difficulties that you children are faced with, your children and those of Marie-Ève Doucet, are there similarities in terms of the problems that they see? Yes, there are similarities. And we hadn't made a link previously, because if we look at the population of military children, a lot of children have diagnoses. And it would be really interesting to know what type of diagnoses there are and how they were affected. Because all the things that I deal with, I'm sorry, interpreter correction, all the clothes that I bring home, they have toxic substances on them. They come home, they go into the laundry, and it is mixed in with everything else. Previously, they would wash our coveralls at the warehouse in order to minimize risk. But now that's not done anymore. Why don't they do that anymore? Because we don't have coveralls anymore. We keep we only take the jacket off. We go in a t-shirt, and at the end of the day, we put our jacket back on. But I mean, my boots, my pants, if I've had all my knees in fuel all day, then that's what I'm bringing home. To the best of your knowledge, there is no list of toxic products. There are there are lists of toxic products. We're supposed to have them. They are, and the bases are supposed to have a list of toxic products, especially ACS. It's very easy to ask Bagotville to provide a toxic products list. Why don't they make them accessible according to you? I don't know. I'm naive. Well, in my 24 years of service, I was supposed to have a hazmat every 2 years, but I had 2 in 24 years. But now they don't even do a hazmat, a medical hazmat. I think that's crazy, and since there are so many cases, it's starting to come out. In a situation such as yours, you worked in aviation with CF or CF-18s. The list of toxic substances, are they available in the U.S.? More easily available? Are we? Yes, I think everything is computerized. They can check the substances, the risk. They can go look for what they need, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. It's like drip tree. We talked about that during the testimony of Marie-Ève, that they're full, and perhaps we need a team of firefighters with the tanks so that they empty it at 5 in the morning, so that all the technicians and all the personnel that come into the building are not affected. But thank you very much, Ms. Cox.
Intervention. I invite Ms. Rachel Blenny for 6 minutes, please.
For your testimony. And if I could just start with a quick question to you, Mr. Booth. You talked about the 4 categories of areas that you work with veterans. And one of the things that has come up in terms of services to veterans and transition is often single veterans are left. So some of them are single with children, some of them are single with no children, and really lack support around them. And so I'm just wondering if there's any programming that is specifically provided for people who are single within the work that you do.
Thank you. It's a really important point, because many of our veterans are either geographically or socially isolated, and we know that very often those are the at-risk ones. But equally, as you've heard very powerfully today, the longer-term impacts on families. True Patriot Love certainly funds both digital support programs. We fund COPE, as it happens. We fund a range of other CAF Kids run by the Children's Helpline and Camp Maple Leaf. So there's a number of programs that are available, but as I mentioned earlier in my testimony about the hub, it's very often hard for people to know what's available to them in their local area. So one of the things we're trying to strengthen is that provision of local information that's specific to someone's personal circumstances, language, culture, wherever they may be cited. So there are programs available. They tend to be localized and probably hard for families to access, particularly those who may be struggling as a lone parent or as a socially isolated.
Thank you very much for that. That is very helpful. Ms. Cox, I want to, of course, thank you for your service and for your testimony today. The question that I have for you is around the fact that while you were serving in the CAF, we know that you've talked a lot today about the toxic exposure that you had. So I'm just curious, were you provided with appropriate PPE? And how did they work with you when you were pregnant in terms of protecting you?
They didn't. They didn't. Like I said before, I had to fight tooth and nail to get space away from PRC, which is the first thing that it attacks the brain. I had to go to a medical doctor and fight for that. Once I came back, I asked to be off the flight line. And they said, no, an office is enough. And I knew it wasn't enough because the airlines in Bagotville don't pass the air test, so they empty the building so that the painters paint at night because the building is not adequate. What was your other question, Mrs.?
And did you get appropriate PPE?
No. I remember fixing radomes. I fix radomes a lot, and it's heat, and you are grinding burnt fibers inside the radome produced by static electricity, and it is fiberglass. So you're in that dome with the fiberglass, zoom, doing that, and having to clean with ketone, which actually melts gloves. And that repair asked 3 or 4 days of doing that, and it's hot. My mask would go down, smallest 3M I could find, my mask would go down, and as it go down, it creates pockets of air where I was breathing direct, burnt, carcinogenic fibers directly into my lungs.
So to follow up on that, in terms of transition, so when you did your medical release, did they do anything to look at those realities? Did you get a hazmat medical?
No, and I requested one. I requested a hazmat medical. I requested a list of hazmat products that were cancerogenic. I requested that. I was not provided with any of it.
So you were released without a hazmat medical.
Without a hazmat medical.
So I would assume then, and clarify if I'm wrong, that if you don't have that as part of your release when you're actually accessing services at VAC, is there any recognition
No.
of that background or any medical that VAC provided?
They'll recognize, oh, you might have knee problems, you might have heel problems or back problems, but on no level do they acknowledge that a guy can get prostate cancer or you can get brain cancer, pancreatic cancer. The thing is that all these toxic materials attack the organs.
Okay.
Once they attack the organs.
So in general, I'm just curious, you talked about your 3 children. So during the transition, do you feel that how that was performed impacted in any way your children? And does VAC provide any concrete support for them?
No. No, at no point in my transition period was my family required to transition themselves. In my opinion, there should be, the military's transitioning, but the family's also transitioning. The money is going to be a little insecure, whatever. So it's not the military. It might have been a single military getting in, but usually when we're getting out, we have a family and we have a husband, we have kids. So those need to be involved in that to the extent that they can understand why mom is so sick, why, they haven't been told. My kids only think, oh, you don't work, you're a housewife. Is what they, I was like, well, I did work before, but they're not explained. My husband was not explained was the process exactly. And in my transition, he had to go to staff college. So now I'm transitioning. He's at staff college, and kids weren't doing well. And my daughter ended up being presented with self-mutilation marks from her thigh to her ankle. And all this chaos was part of that. I was unable to find her a therapist because Veterans Affairs would just tell me, well, phone this number, just phoning. I wasn't able until I had a critical care nurse at home phoning and using her RN at the end of her name to get me in, to get Sydney in. And she was still so extremely hard to find help for the children.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, both of you, for your participation or for your important contribution to this study, Transition to Civilian Life. And Madame Vicky Lynn Cox, merci aussi et beaucoup de courage aussi pour la suite.
Thank you very much for all of your courage, and we wish you all the best in the future. You were a technician in aeronautics. We thank you very much for your testimony, and thank you, Mr. Booth, who is in charge of his foundation of True Patriot Love. Thank you so much for having been with us today. We will take a short break before we pass on to the next 4 witnesses of our committee today. So we are briefly adjourning. Thank you very much.
Reprenons la séance. Nous sommes en train, c'est sur l'étude transition à la vie civile. Et
We
pour
are
cette
starting again for our study on the transition to civil life. We have 4 witnesses together with us, and we have Madame Caroline Hughes, who is a director of the Royal Legion of Canada to Veterans Affairs Services, and Mr. Jonathan Senior, who is here on personally appearing, and we also have Mrs. Susan Pollard, and I also want to thank Mr. Steve Turpin, who is here to testify. So we have 4 witnesses, and each one of them will have 5 minutes.
that we're going, members of the committee will ask questions. And I'm asking members of the committee to think who's gonna ask questions. And I'm gonna start with the 6-minute round. Thank you. And so for now, let's go with Mrs. Hughes. Vous êtes un habitué de la maison, so you have 5 minutes for your...
You have been here many times, Mrs. Hughes, so you have 5 minutes for your opening statement.
Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs. On behalf of the Dominion President, Comrade Bruce Julian, and our over 256,000 members, thank you for inviting the Royal Canadian Legion to speak with you today on your study regarding transition. The Legion has over 1,300 branches. I think we're up to 1,350 now, from coast to coast to coast, each with a volunteer service officer who are our boots on the ground. We also have 35 provincial command service officers and assistant command service officers across the country who assist veterans every day with disability applications to Veterans Affairs, appeals to the Veterans Review and Appeal Board, and access to other VAC benefits and programs. And of course, financial assistance through the Poppy Trust Fund. I mention that because we hear from veterans all across the country, so that's going to be the premise of a lot of what I speak about. So I'm the Legion's Director of Veteran Services at National Headquarters. I'm also a veteran, honored to help my comrades every day. My last position in the military, over 10 years ago, was helping the ill and injured as they transitioned out of the military at what was called the Integrated Personnel Support Centers at that time. That was prior to the stand-up of the transition centers. But my words will reflect on what I'm hearing across the country. I would like to begin with some framework that we think is crucial backdrop to understanding the adjustment period at enlistment and before and during transition. So the experience, transition, and release are different. They're unique for each veteran because some voluntarily leave after a short period of service. Maybe they have paid back their education and want to move on to another job. Some have young families, some who serve 30 years, some who have illnesses and injuries, whether they're attributable to service or not. Some are single, some are married. Lots of variety out there. And in any case, it can be terrifying when you're taking that uniform off and moving on to a different way of life. A lot changes at that time. So while you're in the military, when you first join, you're indoctrinated into a regimented system, believing that the system will always look after you and that you can rely on it. We accept the military culture of teamwork and rely heavily on that team support in all aspects of our career. There is no greater an example of this during times of conflict. However, it exists in all aspects of military service. Service personnel and their families grow with the military culture and have relatively comfortable lives. In essence, the military is part of their extended family, and that bond can be strong and unbreakable in many cases. It becomes part of their very fabric of being, so that for some, leaving that lifestyle or culture is extremely difficult period of time for them and their families. During service, support was available to them. They knew where to go to ask questions and seek help. Professional development occurred through military training, deployments, and postings. They were scheduled for them. They were told where and when to go, how to get there, what to wear, how to style their hair, etc. After a career in a very structured environment, there are many unknowns for a veteran, for a member and their family during transition and their release from service. It is a unique experience for each and every one of them. As I've stated in many presentations in the past, one size does not fit all. In all aspects of the transition process, gender, identity, ethnicity, religious backgrounds, age, length of service, rank, family status, and many more must be considered for the individual. Other factors that can impede a smooth transition from military life to civilian life include housing, financial aspects, employment and education post-service, and a loss of sense of belonging and purpose. Severe and complex disabilities will complicate the transition period and can cause greater instability once released from service. Some medical conditions are not fully recognized by the member or their healthcare team while still in uniform. And some can take years to develop, such as cumulative joint trauma, wear and tear, conditions in the backs, knees, things like that. And there are those who do not report injury for fear of career impacts and simply suck it up and carry on. There are those who struggle with their mental health, whether from deployments, military sexual harassment or assault, or any other stress factor in their life. A mental health condition is often not fully recognized by a member until somebody brings them forward or tells them to get help. Treatment is sought and diagnosis made. That can all take time. And it may occur outside of uniform. It might not be diagnosed before they leave. Stigma is still a major factor, although many great strides have been made to overcome this. Whether in treatment or not, mental illness creates a significant barrier to successful transition when supports are not available. Given the severe shortage of healthcare providers across Canada, many are not receiving the necessary care post-service as they wait for years to find a family doctor. Immediate and continuous treatment must be required before someone can achieve their new normal. Inadequate delays in healthcare, whether mental or physical, only serves to exacerbate symptoms and puts the long-term care of veterans and their families at risk. So I'm almost at time, so my main point here I want to bring is that nobody who is severely injured or ill should be released from the military until their supports are in process. And that includes doctors, other supports such as that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Hughes. Thank you very much. Sorry, it's taking care of. Voilà. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much.
Now I'd like to invite Mr. John Senior as an individual for 5 minutes, please. Go ahead. Yes.
Thank you very much for your time. Unlike most in the general population, the military and the RSMP train in a very tightly controlled group of necessity. They are immediately segregated from the outside world. They learn to rely on the others and then trust them with their lives. We learn to think as a community to overcome any and all problems. We are all very well trained and listen to orders, regulations, so that we may protect our community and our country. We are charged with the responsibilities that the average person cannot comprehend. In the military, we might be charged with the care and control of a section, responsible to provide all aspects of each soldier's needs and welfare. And in return, they trust us with their lives.
Excuse me, Mr. Senior. Excuse me to interrupt you. Just to go a little bit
Slow down a little bit.
I'm so sorry for the interpreters, but
okay. All right.
We will ask you questions.
I'll wind it back
that.
a little bit.
Yeah,
Sorry about that, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
So,
excuse me, Mr. Senior. Yes, Mr. Richards.
Perhaps, I know it's often difficult. 5 minutes is a pretty short period of time. Perhaps you could indicate to our witness that you'd allow a little leeway.
Yeah.
So that he doesn't feel the need to have to try to
Yeah.
quickly.
No, exactly. Don't rush, and do not forget also that you can also send a memorandum to the clerk, and but you have
minutes and 15 seconds.
times.
Okay, that's great.
Sorry.
Okay, so we can also, as I was, be charged with the responsibility of getting aircraft onto the ramp for missions in Afghanistan, where the simple deciding factor was understanding if the aircraft had 15 more horsepower over another. This meant the success or failure of a mission or life or death of a crew. As troops, we are trained to carry weapons and operate very complex equipment. We have extraordinary training and talent that is not comparable to anything in the civilian workplace. In the course of our duties, most of us experienced trauma situations, heard about them. We even seen direct effects in combat, peacekeeping missions, or other extreme situations. Some of these things have exacted a very huge toll, or emotional or mental toll, causing significant operational stress injuries. We know that if we cannot get a grip on this, that our lives will end abruptly within the military community. The military and RCMP personnel develop identities that are beneficial during service. These identities allow us to disassociate for our own survival and to be effective in our jobs. We have to make very clear and defensible decisions that may undergo scrutiny for decades afterwards. Many people not in the service seem to forget this, that we're the ones that you turn to for help, for national security, for emergency aid, and for carrying out humanitarian aid in faraway lands. Sometimes we just cannot turn off our defensive identities. During this transition to civilian life, veterans are faced with integrating into the civilian world. Those who find it and are able to adapt, those who can adapt, they will find a new identity and are able to achieve a very good well-being. However, for about 1/3 of the veterans, this is not possible. You as a government have already done the studies in gathering this information, so it's not like another study has to be done. The answers are already there, for the most part. So for example, for a Life After Service survey from 2019, 39% people report difficulty adjusting civilian life. Medical releases were 49%, depression 33%, not being employed in the civilian workforce 43%. Compared to the 2016 Life After Life After Service survey, there was a drastic increase in retirement, not working in a civilian employment, chronic conditions such as PTSD. There's a much higher increase in participation in VAC programs. Compared to the non-military related age and sex comparison, there's much higher chronic pain issues. There was twice as high. PTSD is 26 times more likely. Depression is nearly twice as high. anxiety 3 times as high, regular activity and limitations is 3 times more. The struggle we have to deal with is being dismissed. As politicians and doctors and people on the other end of the phone for Veterans Affairs, that nearly everyone we deal with appears to be completely dismissing us, our level of professionalism, the training, or how responsible that we were or charged with. Dismissal does a lot of harm for us. No longer being in service does not mean that we immediately forget our loyalty and our knowledge at the door, and then immediately forget who and what we were. Sanctuary trauma is real and is caused by the place that's supposed to be taking care of us. So in the endeavor to save money and deny benefits, they actually cause more harm than good. We as veterans of the military and the RCMP are tired of seeing our benefits decreased while being used for photo ops and denigrated for asking for more than we can give. Let me remind you that many of us gave all. While we still willingly stand on guard, we are later asked to just stand by.
Thank you very much, Mr. Senior, and exactly 5 minutes. Thanks. So now I would like to invite Mrs. Suzanne Pollard for 5 minutes, please. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me come to the session today. I'm here to talk about the ability to reach new veterans, old veterans, and everyone in between. A little bit about the work that I've done. I have approximately 9 years of experience working with veterans, RCMP veterans, Canadian Armed Forces members, and the family members of all of them. I held the role of the Veteran Family Program Coordinator at the PEI Military Family Resource Center for approximately 5 years. Prior to that, I did a lot of work with the organization, and I currently work with the Veterans Review and Appeal Board. I am here today to represent as an individual. I'm not here as part of the Veterans Review and Appeal Board. A couple of the key topics I just want to bring forward today in kind of the experience I've had with working with these clients of mine. The biggest thing being who a veteran is. In my experience, the definition of a veteran in various organizations and community supports is very different. I think we're doing a great job of trying to simplify that within government agencies and agencies that are at an arm's length from the government. But even in the general public, that definition of a veteran has changed and continues to be in the forefront of the hot topic of who we're providing support and service to. The veteran has been changing over the years. We're seeing the veterans are getting younger. Yes, they're getting older as their service has been many years ago, but as we see it, there are a lot of younger veterans who perhaps don't identify as a veteran, but are equally as entitled to these supports and services that exist for all veterans. I think a lot of the education and information sharing has to come from the community outreach and the public awareness that we do. As a Veteran Family Program Coordinator, it was my sole purpose to educate the general public, educate veterans, their families, and everyone that they are part of our community. The next kind of key topic I'd like to talk about is reducing the barriers and stigma around accessing support. So to echo some of the comments that have been made, I'll use Prince Edward Island as the example. Here on the island, we have a large number of veterans currently serving members within the Reg Force and the reserves, primarily reservists. We have our CMP members and we also have our CMP veterans. Oftentimes the support that they need, the medical support they need in specific, they have to leave the island to access that. Oftentimes they're sent to the bases. The two biggest bases closest to Prince Edward Island is Base Gagetown and Base Halifax. Oftentimes in my experience hearing from the veterans, that is absolutely triggering. To return to somewhere that they feel impacted negatively by, it's wrong. They also have the time commitment of having to travel off island to access that service. There's financial strain on that, as oftentimes those travel trips may not be covered. Some of them are through various supports, but not all of them are. And also it adds to the impact of the family dynamics. Sometimes they can't take a loved one. Sometimes they wish they did or could. So sometimes they have to access that on their own. And that can absolutely be traumatizing again. Release dates, medical conditions, the types of releases, all of those factors impact the support and service the veterans receive in their post-service life. It's crucial that there's up-to-date information around their medical records, the release records. I think we're doing a better job as a whole in having proper documentation, but I still think that there's room for improvement. It's okay to not be okay. I strive to say that because I think we need to champion behind that and say it's okay to step up and say I need help. As the government, as the general public. Within that, we just need to advocate more for the veterans and accessing the support that they truly need. Including the families in this. With my experience in the Veteran Family Program role with the Military Family Resource Center, it's vital to include them in the release process. In my experience, it's oftentimes the families are separated from the release process. They absolutely need to be included. It's critical that they are aware of the transition and the support, as well as the support that they can access. One example is counseling through the Military Family Resource Center. Not many people know that it's a free service. Oftentimes, there's very little wait time. The counselors are social workers typically, but they are a barrier-free resource that our families and RCMP and veterans need to access. Just to touch on the last point is the access to information. This is a huge part of it. In my experience, the veterans have been struggling to access the resources that they're entitled to. Oftentimes, the veterans that I've worked with, they have perhaps barriers in accessing the online resources. It becomes a cumbersome topic. It's triggering for them to log into a computer, try to find the information, and then interpret it and comprehend it, and then, validate that it applies to them. I worked really hard to help those veterans, but in my positions and in my roles, a lot of times I was not allowed because of the access to information, the ability to access, for instance, my VAC account. That's something I was never allowed to access. But as somebody who's well versed in technology and accessing online resources, I feel I could have been a really great resource in helping them reduce that stress of simply just logging into a computer and trying to access that. The other key point I want to mention is the impact of service records. It is absolutely crucial that the service records are documented prior to release. And if I can have 30 seconds more, I just want to mention that the RCMP members should not be forgotten. As a daughter of the RCMP officer, oftentimes there is no resources for them, and there needs to be. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Susan Pollard. And now let's go to Mr. Steve Turpin. I'm pretty sure that it's going to go well right now. So you have 5 minutes for your opening statement. Please.
J'espère que tout le monde puisse m'entendre cette fois.
I hope that everybody can hear me this time. Exactly. Go ahead. We can hear you. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for inviting me to this committee. I'm Steve Carpin. I was a member of the Canadian Forces for almost 25 years of service. The beginning of my career started with the reserves in Quebec. I was of those people who were deployed, and at the time, when we were coming back from a mission and we needed some support or some service, well, it didn't exist. We were just sent back home. Thank you for serving your 6 months, and that was the end. I was lucky that I was able to join the regular forces a year later, and I was able to continue my career in aviation. But once again, at that time for me, it was not recognized the 6 month service that I had done. I was never able to get the supports and the treatment that I needed. Today, again, I'm still having difficulties. I have some smells that are bothering me. Nobody recognizes that I am being bothered by some smell, some sense. Even when I was in the regular forces and I asked for this to be recognized, it was not recognized. When I was let go it was on another medical reason. I'm sorry, I'm having some difficulties. It's a bit difficult right now. So when I left the regular forces, it was on a different medical ground. I was prepared properly by my case manager, and I have nothing bad to say about that person. But leaving us alone after that, no. Once you're out of the system, you're alone. I have called Veterans Affairs to obtain aid, to meet with psychologists, to avoid problems in our family. And I am really lucky that I have a family that was very strong and was able to follow me during my entire career. They supported me. They continue to support me. They still support me today. And when we need to meet a specialist of mental health, but that you don't have resources in the region where you live, and you're being sent to see just about anybody, I'm sorry, but it doesn't help. As far as I'm concerned, I needed to see a psychologist, but I was sent to see a sexologist because the services of psychologists were not available in my region. So people want to do well in health in the region, but they're not prepared. They're not prepared to receive veterans. They don't understand veterans. They don't understand our situation. They don't understand what we live through all years of service. In my region, Trois-Rivières, in Quebec, there are no bases that are nearby where I can go and get supports. So at the time, it is a real battle for me. I mean, it's a battle of every day for me to continue, just like we say in English, suck it up, buttercup, that for me to move forward is very difficult. And I have to bank on the support of my friends and the support of my family. So it would be really good for Veterans Affairs to, do check-ins, because I know that for the region where we are, there is a list. There are a list of professionals in this area. But it's to see the relevance, the capacity of these people to be able to answer to our need. I mean, the two specialists that I went to see, they had no idea how to answer my question. They had no idea what to do for me, in spite of meeting 3-4 times. They're the one who were asked me, what can we do for you? I could have said something like, declare me an invalid or something like this, and they would have done it, but it would not have helped me. So veterans must find a way to get help. There are towns where there are no resources, and so veterans must be able to find the proper resources. So for the training, for example, it is a place where it's very difficult. You have a really big job, and I thank you once again for working on this, because each individual is different. Each individual has a reason that is different for leaving the forces. But preventing us because of our situation to do a career that we would like to do in the civilian world, this is definitely something that should be reviewed. There are several areas where I would have liked to work, and I think I could have been helped. But because of my situation, I was prevented. No one wanted to pay for my training. I was being sent to trainings where I had no interest, in fact. So this is not being helpful. So it is not helping us as veterans. So on that, I just wanted to help anyone who is a veteran and has served in the forces, in the RCMP. This is my whole reason for being here today. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Monsieur Turpin, for your testimony.
Thank you to all our witnesses, whether the witnesses represent an organization or are an individual, you have stated that you wish to help veterans, and we are grateful for that. And thank you, Mr. Turpin, for staying for the second half of this session. We are now going to the first round of questions, and I would like to invite, for the first 6 minutes, to invite Mr. Blake Richards. You have the floor.
Thank you to those of you who served our country for your service to our country. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Senior. I thought you put it really well. When you wrapped up your opening statement and talked about how veterans are willing to put everything were willing to put everything on the line while they served, and now they're being told, well, just hang out, wait a bit, maybe eventually we'll get to dealing with your claims and things like that. And I think that really strikes at the very bottom line of the problem here. It's veterans were willing to serve this country, and their country should be there for them. And right now, we're not seeing that. I wondered if you could just start by talking just maybe briefly, 60 seconds or so, to your service. Tell us a little bit about your service and why that makes you well qualified to be here as a witness on our transition study.
So thank you very much for that. I started off in Gagetown, New Brunswick as Armored Corps, and my very first introduction to being active was during my training. We were stood up on standby for the Oka crisis, and essentially everything after that. And then I went into Germany, so Cold War stuff, and we were always on duty, 24/7, 365 in theater, and it was very different back then because we knew we were sacrificial. Okay, in the tanks, we had to take out 36 of them to one of ours. So we knew we were a speed bump. And literally, we had, like I said, 15-second lifespan. So from there, I came back to Canada, and I went to Bosnia in 1994 in the United Nations. Saw a lot of stuff going there. And then again, during the first deployment under NATO, during the 1997, when we rolled on in there into Bosnia, and then again in 2000 with the Air Force, and then did the G8 summit. I did the Quebec ice storm, and then I did a bunch of time in the States to train for the Chinook helicopters. So when I did Afghanistan, did a lot of international stuff there, and so I did a lot of international work. And sorry, I'm taking a little more time here, but it's when we work with a lot of other nations, you get to see the differences in the way their soldiers are treated and stuff like that. And in a lot of ways, we are we are left behind.
You mentioned some service in Afghanistan. You've probably I know you've followed this committee. You mentioned that to me at the beginning before you came up to the witness stand. How do you feel about all the delays we're seeing in trying to get a monument constructed to the Afghanistan mission, and all the sort of delays we're seeing in getting a motion to try and get to the bottom of that in this committee?
So the whole thing here is the monument is important to the veterans, and it's what's happening now is with the delay of this, it is turning into a sore point. So when we see this stuff happening now, it's like, we really can't take pride in that because there was a lot of things that didn't happen when we returned back from Afghanistan. It was just like, okay, it's over, it's all done. Other places, there was some recognition for that. And we weren't asking for a ticker tape parade kind of thing. That never happened. It was literally, okay, we're quietly leaving, and then to rub salt into the wounds, it was, we're abandoning all the interpreters that were there as well. So that really left a sore point. So this monument now, it's being tainted. And in that delay, it's going further than that. I did some homework before coming here, and I put out to 18,000 vets on 12 different pages. And there's a lot of anger out there with this whole thing. And it shouldn't be a political thing, as I'm trying to get at. It's Canada as a nation is what it should represent, and it's not. Going with when you go to other nations, we don't see this happening, okay? We just don't see it happening. I go down to the States a lot, do work with Veterans Affairs down there. They don't have those particular problems because it's a national recognition. With that, what I'm trying to say with this essentially is that when we look at the Gulf War vets, they got nothing. Nothing. They're ignored. And so we're really starting to feel the same kind of way here with this. And I really hope you understand what I'm trying to say is this should not be a political football, is what it shouldn't be, is all I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you know, like, I think I can't even imagine what it must feel like for veterans like yourself who serve, for the families of those who fell in Afghanistan. You know, not only can you not get the services you need from the government, but you can't even just get a simple monument to recognize your service. So I'm just going to ask, because we've tried 7 times now to pass a motion to get to the bottom of that situation. I'm just going to ask for unanimous consent to adopt the motion that I put on notice on November 24th. I don't know if you need it read in the record, but I'd ask for unanimous consent to adopt that motion so we can get to the bottom of this and let these veterans feel the honor they deserve. Can we get unanimous consent for that motion to be adopted, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Richard. You have 1 more minute to go, but I'd like to ask members of the committee. But first of all, I'd like to make sure which motion you're talking about, because we have a new one from.
I'm asking for unanimous consent to adopt the motion that I have moved several times for the production of documents related to the national mission to the monument in Afghanistan.
So
no consent.
Okay, so all members understand on what they're gonna reply to. So I'd like to know if there is unanimous consent to adopt the motion. No. We don't have unanimous consent, so Mr. Richard, 1 more minute to go, please.
It's incredibly frustrating, and I'm sorry that it wasn't possible for us to. I'd hoped that your plea would be enough, but apparently even that's not enough, Mr. Senior. Can I ask you as well, just the current state that we see in terms of we're seeing more and more veterans. Because of the cost of living crisis that are out on the street, homeless. We're seeing more and more veterans having to go to food banks. We're seeing veteran suicide rates at rates way too high. When you see your fellow veterans suffering like that, how does that make you feel? And can you just tell us how you feel about the state of things in Canada right now with
Thank you for asking that question. So I'm really glad you asked that. So we are on a fixed income when we're on disability. And so the cost of living is going up, and we're watching our brothers and sisters in uniform actively right now struggle. And so we are feeling the exact same pain with that, because as the cost of living index goes up, our cost of the money coming in doesn't change. So we are getting a pay cut every day is what's happening right now. And again, it's that little bit of abandonment issue of not being supported. And the only reason why I'm saying this is because we do go through and ask, and it is through the organizations like the Legion and other organizations that pick up the slack, and food banks. Currently, I am doing work with the Veterans Association in Calgary, Food Bank, and conducting programs with that. Military sexual trauma, because again, is not being covered. And MST in Afghanistan is different than it was back in Canada, and all of it is very heinous. And so there's issues with a lot of those things that are just not recognized. So Veterans Affairs is kind of behind on the ball on a lot of things. The cost is hurting, and there's Canadians leaving here. This is what's not been talked about is veterans are leaving, going to like Mexico and Thailand and the Philippines because they cannot afford the cost here, which has not been discussed.
Thank you.
Sorry about that,
Mr. Senior. No, because we have 6 minutes. So thank you, Mr. Richard. So you will have more questions coming from members of the committee. So I invite Mr. Michael away for 6 minutes, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair, and it's actually a privilege. I'm normally not on this committee, but it's a privilege to be here at the moment to speak to each of you. But my questions will be for Director Hughes, and I know back home in Cape Breton we have quite a few legions that do amazing work for veterans. In many cases, they will do some work for RCMP as well, but also regional police, because people forget that there's a large contingent of regional police officers that have gone overseas, whether it be Afghanistan or Kosovo. And one of the things that I've heard from them, those that are working in the legions, working on behalf of other veterans, and what I believe has been heard in this committee, is the red tape in terms of Veterans Affairs Canada. So I'm looking to see if you can unpack quickly an example of how we can lessen red tape on a particular issue that's important to you and veterans, because we want to create better efficiency and effectiveness as opposed to closing Veterans Affairs like they did in Sydney, the previous Conservative government. We had to open them up. I want to see where can we create better effectiveness and efficiencies from your perspective.
I think automatically awarding some disabilities would greatly help. There's certain conditions that are associated with certain trades, as the previous speaker was mentioning. Some of those to be automatically presumed to be related to service would greatly help. It would alleviate the backlog because more would be going through on an easier basis, for lack of a better word. And that enables treatment to be paid for. So, for example, if somebody has a bad knee and needs a brace or needs injections, that is not paid for until you have a successful disability claim. And it can take, it's gotten a little better. I must give Veterans Affairs that. It has gotten better. But when the worst backlog was happening, it was 2 years before somebody would get a disability claim approved for a knee. So there were a lot of people where their conditions worsened during that time, where VAC could have approved, and it would have been much better for the individual and their family on their quality of life also.
Thank you for that. I'll pass my time off to my colleague.
Thank you, Chair. I want to thank all the witnesses for your testimony and helping us help veterans transition. My question is going to go to Ms. Pollard. Ms. Pollard, you said that young veterans had a tougher time dealing with transition, and technology can help them, just simple things like MyVac account logging in. Is there anything else you can perhaps tell us on how we can help younger veterans like yourself transition into the workforce?
To clarify that, I think what I meant was that all veterans experience that burden of technology support, not just the young ones. In my experience in working with the younger veterans, it comes back to identity. Some of the younger veterans that I have worked with, they've served for 5-6 years, for instance. They've released, and then they've gone on to other careers. They've gone on to become a teacher or an electrician, for instance. And oftentimes that service gets forgotten. But the impacts of that service still exist. And I think it's important to bring light to that. I go back to the core of this in service records are vital. The releasing screenings are vital. Those conditions that perhaps don't exist the day that they are releasing, they can exist in a year or 2 years. And it's important to do proper follow-up. It's important to recognize that no matter the stint of time that they've spent in the RCMP or Canadian Armed Forces was time served to our country, and the impacts of that still exist, even if they've left.
Thank you. My next question will go to Mr. Senior. We heard a lot about the importance to ensure that the transition to life after service is as smooth as possible. In an article, I think in November 2023, about your work for veterans with PTSD and trauma, it said, and I quote, "Many veterans and first responders have a white coat syndrome, which you say is a hesitancy to seek medical help, and they're more likely to seek support from someone with a shared experience." That sense of community and something is obviously important to veterans. Ms. Hughes, being from somebody in veterans, sees that, and that's why the Legion was there. It's also a continuation from what they know from the military, in a sense. We also know that PTSD can often show signs many years later after leaving the forces. How can Veterans Affairs better support organizations such as yours and others to identify those things and treat those syndromes?
Thank you for the question. Brilliant question, actually. I was talking with the Ombudsman a little while ago, the Veterans Affairs Ombudsman, and one of the things I recommended was putting veterans that are able to work the front lines on the phones in place first. to work alongside with the caseworkers and CSTMs and stuff. When I left the military, fortunately enough, I worked with OSIS, so with National Joint Council of Veterans Affairs, D&D. And within that, I got to work within Veterans Affairs for 3 years as National Defense. Very unique position. I got to see a lot of things happening. And I do say that putting that recommendation in there of having veterans answer the phones, talk to the dudes, and like talk to the people on the other end of the phone, because we get it, and working a lot closer with the Legion as well, has been very successful for me in that, because the people coming in are not understanding some of the needs. That if a veteran is yelling and screaming on the other end of the phone, you don't hang up on them. There's a need, okay? So answering that need. So the reason why I've been successful in doing peer support and this kind of thing and have a very good pulse on the veteran community is because I'm listening. People do get angry. I deal with people talking about suicide on a regular basis. Rather than calling 911 immediately, find out what's going on with the guy first, right? Are you really talking about it, or just like, are you thinking about it, feeling about it, or are you just talking about it? Bringing MAID into the whole thing as well was kind of a really bad thing. It sent a lot of bad messages to the whole veteran community as well. Again, that we're just essentially a pariah, or we're too expensive. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yeah, thank you very much. Et maintenant, nous passons la parole à Monsieur Luc Desilets pour les...
Thank you very much. We're now going to give the floor to Mr. Luc Desilets for 6 minutes. Go ahead. Thank you, Mr. Senior. My questions are for you. You mentioned the confidence and the respect that you had when you were in the armed forces. And am I to understand with what you've said that you don't have the same trust with regards to veterans, to Veteran Affairs, to the Department of Veteran Affairs, the Department of Veterans Affairs? Can you? Do you trust in the work? Do you trust the work that is done by the Department of Veteran Affairs?
I do trust that the intent is good, and I do trust that they do want to help. However, because there's that gap of understanding, that there's a lot of, we feel dismissed. Okay, I used to be in charge of, as I said, aircraft in Afghanistan. And so a lot of things I would do would be mission critical. And so we talk to them on the phone there and I say, hey, this is what I really need there. And they go, well, I'm going to question that on you, sir. It's kind of demeaning and disrespectful. Now, there are obviously veterans out there that are going to take advantage of this system, but answering, I'm sorry, your name, sir? Mr. Sarai's question, that kind of stuff can be alleviated as a first roadblock to determining whether someone is genuine or not. Somebody who has no experience dealing with certain veterans and this kind of stuff will not know what is genuine. This young lady here would completely understand what I'm talking about with the certain people trying to get services. And they shouldn't be questioned too much.
C'est clair. Merci pour votre service en Afghanistan.
Thank you for your service in Afghanistan. I'd like to keep going with that topic. You said something that was really sensible. You said that a monument should not be a political issue, but should be rather something that is national recognition. We agree that the department did a good thing by having a competition for the design. Do you respect the decision that was made by the expert jury with regards to the design?
That question because it's too convoluted, and I don't have enough information to deal with that. I tried doing some research online and reading about this and looking at this, and it's too tainted, to be quite honest. When I look at the National War Monument outside the gate here, it brings a sense of pride to me, and I don't think that could happen, this particular step in the process anymore with the National Afghanistan War Monument, because it represents too many other things that are going on. And it's not there for national pride. It's there as it's going to be, as I said, a political football, which it should not have been in the first place.
Je suis totalement d'accord avec ce que vous dites et bon nombre d'entre nous sommes du même avis que vous.
Many of us are completely in agreement with you. We want to honor, but at the moment, this monument, it is really a monument to shame. There's way too much controversy around it. There are definitely solutions that we could look into, and we are hoping that the Liberals will be able to meet our request and will give back to the Daou company the monument to design as it was selected by the experts. Madame Hughes, you presented an excellent testimony, and I would like for you to explain to me if there are links between the 27 transition centers that will be put in Canada and the legions.
When I was working at the Integrated Personnel Support Centers before I released from the military, and I got the job at the Legion, I used to go back every Wednesday morning, and I would help veterans there too. We had a memorandum of understanding with the Joint Personnel Support Unit at that time. I would love to see us going back in there, and I'm working with them on that, just to have some presence in there, because we do present at Second Career Assistant Network presentations. We have presented to transition centers, so I would like to see that expanded.
OK. Mais je fais référence au centre de transition que le gouvernement
Now
est
I'm
en...
talking about the transition centers that are being put together by the government. There's 27 of them. I think they'll be put together in the next 2 months. Is there a link between those centers and the Legion? Have you been consulted before they are set up?
Yes, absolutely. We work very closely with them. They refer people to us. We refer them to them. It would be nice to have a person from the Legion in a lot of them. Unfortunately, like a lot of organizations, we're a little short-staffed. Hopefully that will change in the future because we are very, very busy. But yes, I would love to have somebody in each transition center from the Legion to help, because as my colleagues have said, sometimes they don't want to see another uniform. They don't want to go into a place where there's uniforms, where we can meet in other places. We can say, either come to our offices at our commands, we can meet for a coffee, we can do different things. But
Merci.
It takes a team to
Merci
help
beaucoup.
veterans.
Monsieur Senior, je ferai du pouce sur...
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Senior, I wanted to talk to you on what was just said. Do you think that veterans prefer to go to community organization than government services?
Mr. Senior, excuse me, you have 30 seconds, about 30
Okay, sure thing.
seconds, please.
It depends on a case-by-case basis, to be quite honest, depending on the injury. Somebody, for example, who experiences military sexual trauma may not want to have any deals with uniform at all. Therefore, this might be a better idea. I think it's a case-by-case basis, sir.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur
Thank you very
Désiré.
much. Thank you very much, Mr. Desilets. And for the last round of questions,
Much, and I want to thank all those who have been here to testify, and for those who have served. I want to thank you so much for your service. I'm going to start off with my first point, and I think what I'm going to do is ask everybody, because I think you all spoke to it. I'm going to start with Mr. Turpin because he hasn't spoken yet. But what I have heard from many, many veterans is that services are not veteran-centric. They're not focused on the needs of the veterans. And I understand that that's very complex because veterans have had many different experiences. But one of the things that really concerns me is that services don't seem to be at VAC trauma-informed. And what I mean by that is I've heard and read a lot of things that come out of VAC where it's very much the tone is you're not behaving, and if you don't do what we are asking you to do by this date, you will face the consequences and we will remove everything. And that worries me because obviously if people are in that kind of need for care, they often do call yelling. They often do have to process in a way that can be very hard, but I would love to see people more trained to respond in that way. So, Mr. Turpin, if I could just ask you on your opinion around having workers at VAC have a deeper depth of trauma-informed services, hopefully with a lot more veterans working there to provide that service to veterans.
Je suis tout à fait d'accord avec ce que vous dites.
I completely agree with what you're saying and the situation you're broaching. The problem is it's not just the Veterans Affairs, it is the services that are offered by the specialists that were referred to immediately after being let go. So people who are outside the organization, the civilians, they don't understand the trauma of those veterans. So they don't know how to adjust, how to adapt. They don't know how to help us directly because they have no experience. They have no idea. Veterans, yes, I think they're doing everything they can. They do as much as they can, but it is teams that should be trained. Where some of those specialists in various areas, they would have a basic idea of what a veteran is so that they would be able to help veterans. For me, unfortunately, it is like a lost battle in my case. I mean, I'm trying not to be too pessimistic. There's nothing serious that's going to happen right away. But it's just that with everything I've tried to do research on to help myself, well, it's very difficult to help me because nobody understands my situation. But the advantages are still here. We see improvements every year. So this is very clear. As I've said to you, during my time in the reserve, I didn't have any help after I came back from mission. But now the reserve officer coming back from deployment, they do get services. So we're on the right track. And it's been like this for a few years, but there's still a lot to build. And we will continue to build because people are very different.
Pollard.
I am a daughter of an RCMP veteran. Sorry, my video cut out there. I am a daughter of an RCMP veteran. I take that very pridefully, and I'm proud to be a part of this community. And my experiences within my own family, I didn't realize would be so impactful in working with the veterans that I have worked with and currently work with. In my roles, I have been trained on the ASSIST program, so that is key for my ability to support someone who is in a suicidal, perhaps state of mind or instance. The other major course that I've taken is a mental health first aid course. I've had the opportunity to co-facilitate it, and it is absolutely so important, and I believe strongly that those types of courses, those two in particular, are extremely beneficial for anybody who is working with these clients and coworkers and comrades and however you identify them as. Recently, I spoke with a veteran on the phone, and he was very, very upset with his experience, very upset with his release and what was happening in regards to our conversation. And I used my personal experience as a way of helping him understand that I can understand. I'm not a veteran. I don't have that experience. But as a daughter of an RCMP officer who perhaps never identified that he had challenges, I recognize now that he does. Diagnosed or not, he is having challenges, and having to navigate that with limited support has been challenging. But I take, like I said, a lot of pride in the work that I've done and the access to the supports that I've been able to work with.
Thank you. I only have a couple minutes or seconds. So Mr. Senior, and then if we can close with Ms. Hughes, I'd really appreciate
yes. So there's no continuity of services for the same injuries, which is a bit of a problem. Veterans talk. Even after we leave the service, our cell phones don't get hung up. We still talk to a lot of people. As I said, I connected with 18,000 veterans about the War Monument thing but what I'm trying to get with this is our injuries don't go on pause while the decision's being made. Our life still has to go on. And because there's no continuity whatsoever, it is a mixed deck of cards, and it's very frustrating because we don't know what we're going to get. Okay, so some of the services we're getting are really, really good, but they don't last, because when it's good and vets are getting happy, they gets cut, and then we get something we don't like. So I'm sorry.
Thank you. What I can say is that it is convoluted. Services are different for everybody. So it depends on what service you're talking about. But our Legion service officers deal with that every day, the command ones. whether it's somebody was denied IRB or the critical injury benefit or just denied for a disability claim. We help with all of that. So, and I see the discrepancies across the board in a lot of benefits. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all of you for your input, your participation on that study on transition on civilian life. And for this hour, we had with us as an individual by video conference, thank you, Mrs. Susan Pollard. And we have with us here Mr. John Senior as a veteran, thank you. From the Royal Canadian Legion, Caroline Hughes, Director, Veteran Services, and Monsieur Steve Turpin, merci, on a entendu votre message, merci.
Thank you, Mr. Steve Turpin. We have heard your message. You told us that you are well surrounded, your family is very present, so hold on. And we hope that you find solutions. So does it please the members of the committee to adjourn the meeting? Yes. So we are presently adjourned. Thank you very much.